entertainment and truth. And to me, the truth portion is the word of God. We have got a lot of stuff going on. We've got a lot to talk about. Probably will not get to everything today. I have been planning on doing this. I was going to do this a week ago, but it was like every day there was something new company or something new to be waiting for. Just a whole lot of stuff going on right now. Since I think my last episode, we've had another black man killed by police. And this one, there's some things going on. We're starting to see some things. This one should open the eyes of people who haven't been able to see some things. This one, Rayshard Brooks, with what's going on in Atlanta right now. Look, I'm one of those who have been saying all along that not all police are bad, and I know that. I actually shared a story on Facebook yesterday, and I'll share that with you in a few minutes too, about 2 police stoppings I've had within the last year. Totally different stoppings. Another thing that hasn't changed is COVID-19. Hasn't gone anywhere, people. As a matter of fact, it's rearing its head. Some are saying it's a second wave. Some are saying it's still the first wave. All I know is that people are still dying from it, and dying in numbers. Right now, we've got over 118,000 people in this country alone have died. Did you know that 25% of all the deaths from COVID-19 have happened in the greatest country that ever exists? 25% of all COVID-19 deaths have taken place right here in the great US of A. The greatest, the richest country in the world. Why don't we have the richest health care? That's a big part of the deaths here in this country, is lack of proper health care. So we've got to do something about that too. Again, I want to say to the protesters, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Keep doing your thing. We have got to be careful though. We have got to be careful when people mislead the rest of the country about the protesters. For a while there, the saying was that because of what people in our government were saying, people were thinking that the protesters also were the rioters and the looters. That's been proven not to be true. The protesters are not the looters. The protesters are not the rioters. As a matter of fact, our president has talked about Antifa, and he has blamed a lot of it on Antifa. It's not Antifa. It's not Antifa. There are other organizations that are right-wing organizations that are playing a part in the rioting and in the looting. They have even found situations, sites where bricks have been stored. Sites where bricks have been stored, and then they have people on film giving these bricks out to be thrown. The people who have given the bricks out, they're not protesters. There is footage of a guy who's standing next to a window. He breaks the window and he motions for people to go inside and do the looting. Does he go inside? No. He goes down to another building and breaks another window and does the same thing. That's not a protester. So we got to be careful, y'all. We cannot be taken in by all of the bull. All of the bull. There are people that do not want you to like the protesters. It's plain and simple. There are people who are trying to derail what the protesters are doing. Plain and simple. And we cannot fall for it. You have to, look, you got to do a little bit of investigation, okay? Today's title of this episode is Defunding the Police. There's a lot of misinformation going around about defunding the police, what exactly it means, what it doesn't mean. A lot of folks have been misled to believe that defunding the police is all about shutting down police departments. That's not true. Don't believe it. Everybody knows that we have to have police departments. But with all of the systemic racism that exists within police departments across the country. And that's not to say that it exists in every police department, but quite a few. With all of that going on, we cannot allow ourselves to be distracted from what that actually means. Defunding the police really simply is just about reallocating funds. I want to show you something. Take a second, take a minute. What do you think the budget for the New York Police Department is? Take a guess. Let me see. Anybody want to take a guess? Comment, give me a comment. What do you think the budget for the New York Police Department is? Somebody says $400 million. That is a lot of money. $400 million is quite a bit of money, but you're not even close. Anybody else? Take another guess. What do you think the budget is for the New York City Police Department? I'm not talking about for the state of New York. I'm talking about the boroughs of New York. What is it, 7, 8 boroughs in New York? What do you think the police budget is? Well, I'm going to show you here real quick. Here it is. I find this very hard to believe. $11 billion. $5.16 billion going to what? Going to personnel. So that's going to be like salaries. $11 billion. That's probably bigger than the total yearly budget for some small country. Now, I'm not knocking it if I know they need a budget, okay, and I know the police department needs money, but $11 billion? That's crazy. So, what defunding the police is all about is restructuring some of those funds to go into other areas within the community. Give you an example. I saw something the other night on television where they were talking about the difference between South Korea and the United States when it comes to how the two countries responded to COVID-19. In South Korea, and I don't know if you know, but they got their first case the same day that we did. The first infection of COVID-19 in South Korea was the same day that they both happened in March. But what happened in South Korea, they shut the government down. They shut everything down, okay? And it took us a while to do that. The philosophy is what I heard. This is what I heard about the philosophy. We have heard COVID-19 referred to as an enemy. We are in a war, which I agree with. The way South Korea looked at it was, in order to get things right, you have to eliminate your opponent. You have to eliminate your enemy in the war. So that's what South Korea has focused on doing to the best of their ability, eliminating COVID-19. You see, if you want to get the economy up and running, what you have to do is you have to eliminate whatever it is that's holding the economy back. You can't act like it doesn't exist and think that you're going to get the economy booming again. So the difference between South Korea and America is they had and they still are focusing on eliminating the virus. Whereas in America, what we're doing now is we're almost acting like the doggone thing has disappeared. It hasn't. As they're finding out in Florida, as they're finding out here in Texas, as they're finding out in California. It hasn't gone anywhere. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have opened back up, but the experts told us how to open up. They told us how to do it, and we didn't. Well, some states did. California has followed the advice of the experts, but Florida, the governor of Florida won't even mandate masks to be worn in Florida. I don't get it. In Texas, what the governor did here in Texas is he threw it back to local government. So if local government says if they mandate masks, then you have to wear a mask. I have never really stopped wearing my mask. So we cannot act like this thing has disappeared and doesn't exist. I noticed something though. I noticed something that was very odd. Have you, what are the two biggest things that are facing America right now? And to some extent, the entire world. The two major things that are facing America. When you turn on the news today, you see two things. Those two things are COVID-19 and systemic racism. There's a lot of parallels between the two. One, you can't ignore either. You can't hope or think, wish it away, and it's going to disappear. You can't do that with either one. You have to put together some type of plausible plan by experts that will get rid of both. And that hasn't happened here in America. We've had plans. We've got a plan, but not everyone is following the plan. Systemic racism and COVID-19 are like this also. They both thrive off of ignorance. Racism thrives off of ignorance. I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather telling me a story about World War II. I told you guys my grandfather fought in World War II when I think he was like 15. And he told me a story about when he was in England. And actually, I read about this too in a Black History class. He told me a story about how an English family had befriended him. And the family had 3 children. They had 3 young children, teenage children, 2 boys and a daughter. And one day, him and some other GIs went to the house, and they were told the story that a white GI had told them, and that was that Black soldiers grew tails during full moon. Come on, man. Black soldiers grew tails during full moon. That was because the white Southern soldiers wanted to keep the white Brits, white British women anyhow, away from the Black soldiers. That kind of stuff went on throughout World War II. You had similar stories like that being told to the French. At one time, you had black soldiers receiving medals in such a degree in France that the white soldiers complained to their officers, who complained to the French government and forced the French government to stop giving these medals to the Black soldiers. You had stuff like that going on all across the country. COVID-19 and systemic racism thrive off of ignorance. I had a guy that I worked with back in the day, white guy that I worked with. I grew up in North Highlands. He grew up in Carmichael. His dad told him to stay away from certain areas in Sacramento that were considered Black areas. One of those was North Highlands. When I was coming up in North Highlands never had a Black population of even 10%, not even 10%. Where they got that from was sports. If you look at the basketball team of the high school, it's probably 95% Black. If you look at the football team, probably 60, 70% Black. You know, so people around the community thought that North Highlands was majority Black. And just spread all kind of rumors to keep their white children away from the Black children. They're all criminals. They're all thugs. Doesn't that sound familiar? Does it? Within the last 3 years, haven't we heard that about some other people? Didn't somebody say that about these people south of us? I think our president was calling them criminals and thugs and rapists. Ignorance, COVID-19, racism breeds off of ignorance. You can't allow yourself to be ignorant. The Bible says, God said, my people perish due to the lack of knowledge. Educate yourself. Look, I was disappointed in churches. And I actually was going to have a meeting with my pastor to talk about it because I felt that churches should be at the forefront of not only what's going on with COVID-19, but what's going on with racism across the country. And I actually was going to participate in the march. I was going to stay in the back so I could stay away from people and keep my mask on. But a friend of mine from my men's Bible study group shared with me that my church was going to be sponsoring a rally here in the Plano area, actually in Cullen County at the courthouse. And so my thinking was, I'm going to go to the rally. And I thought it was maybe, be 500-800 people there. It was thousands. And I would say the percentage was at least 50% white and black, at least 50%. And I was very encouraged by what some of the pastors were saying. And actually, I heard this after that as well. I heard it on television during the George Floyd funeral, the memorial homegoing celebration. One of the white pastors at the rally took accountability, and said that he said, this is what he said. He said, we as white people cannot continue to be enablers. We can't continue to stand on the sidelines while these injustices continue. You had a white pastor say pretty much the same thing at George Floyd's funeral. I'm telling you, man, right now, I see the best opportunity for change than I think I've ever seen in my life. I've said that before. I see it. I said this before too. In order for the civil rights to succeed, two things had to happen back then. One, you had to have the people who were being oppressed had to stand up as a collective and say, we're tired of it, we're not going to continue to take it. But that wasn't going to be enough. The other thing, you had to have the majority of the country, which is white folks, had to stand up and say, this is wrong. This is wrong. And we're not going to continue to stand by. That's what I see happening now. Black folk are standing up all across the country, all across the world, and saying that this is not right, and we're not going to continue to take this. But they're not alone. White people, Latin people, Asians, not just all across this country, but all across the world have been standing up and saying this is wrong. But you have a few people who have been trying to mix the game up, who have been trying to get you to believe something else, like the protesters are the rioters, the protesters are the looters. None of that is true. Stay the course, people. Stay the course. You know what's right. You know what's right. And a man getting shot in the back is not right. You can't tell me that a man, a police officer, a trained police officer who is in the field all the time is afraid enough of a taser that he knows. He's trained to use tasers, so he knows it's not going to take his life. You can't tell me that a trained police officer thinks that someone running away from him after the taser has already been fired twice, you can't tell me that officer believes that his life is threatened. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Then he says, I got him. I don't believe that, people. And you can't believe that either. I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, black man who's a Republican. Well, I was talking to a friend of mine, black brother who's a Republican, the other day. And most of his conversation was Republican speaking points. Look, I don't care if you are Republican, Democrat, or Independent. This is not about that. We cannot allow people who want to separate us to use that. I don't give a doggone if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat or you're independent. I don't care. Shooting a man in the back that's running away from you is wrong. It's wrong. I really never concerned myself with whether a person was a Republican or a Democrat. Martin Luther King never was concerned about that. He just wanted a world where his daughters, black girls, now black women, could play with white girls without fear. Let me share real quick with you the story that I shared online the other day. I got stopped twice by police last year. The first one was in Little Rock, Arkansas. I was driving and I had a phone call come through, so I wanted to pull over and answer the phone call. I didn't want to be dangerous and talking on the phone. So I pulled over in a church parking lot, empty parking lot, no church service going on, nothing. And I couldn't have been on the phone for more than 15 minutes when a police car pulled up. Officer got out, walks over to me, asked me what I was doing. Told him I was on the phone. I pulled over to answer a call. He informed me that he had gotten a call about a suspicious character in the church parking lot. Let me ask you a question. In an empty parking lot, what made me suspicious? You got it. The fact that I was black. But the officer was pretty cool. He asked me a few more questions, and actually we engaged in probably about a 20-minute conversation. I felt I was comfortable. I didn't feel threatened. I wasn't fearing for my life. Different though, later on when I got stopped in Oklahoma. Me and my boy was driving to California from actually at that point we were coming from Arkansas, from Little Rock. I'm driving. Speed limit was 65. I see an officer. I see a police officer. First thing I do, I look down at my speedometer. I was going like maybe 66 or 67. Even then, I still backed it off to exactly 65. There were 2 lanes going each way on the freeway. I'm in the fast lane. So what do? I put my blinker on and I get over into the right lane. Cop gets off the median, flies up, pulls in right behind me, hits his lights, pulls me over. The police officer comes over to the passenger side of the car, and I asked him, because I know I have that right, why he pulled me over. He said, I didn't put on my blinker. Now look, there's not a black man in America that's not going to be paying attention to everything that's going on when there's a cop behind him. His speed, he's going to do everything right. I did everything right. I put my blinker on. He says I didn't. He asked if he could search the car. He didn't ask for my license right away. He asked if he could search the car. I said, no, but it's not my car. Then he asked for my license and registration. I told him the car belongs to the guy that's on the passenger side. He asked him if he could search the car. He said no. So then he asked me to get out and come back to his cruiser so he could write the citation. I get out, I go back to the cruiser. What does he ask me when we get in the cruiser? Do you have any drugs or guns in the car? I said no. He says, look, tell me. He said, if you tell me and you're honest with me, it'll be easier on you. I said, man, I told you the truth. I told you there's no guns or drugs in the car. He said, if I have to call for a K9 to come out here and we find drugs or guns in the car, he said, it's going to be more difficult on you because you're lying to me. I said, man, I told you the truth. And I'm not going to say it again. If you're going to write a ticket, write a ticket. But I did put my blinker on. Long story short, he didn't even write me a ticket. He gave me a warning. And he asked the guy again if he could search the car. I asked him something no. I said, look, there's nobody in the car but me and you right now, just the 2 of us. I want to ask you a question. Just the 2 of us. did you pull us over because you saw two black guys in a BMW? Is that why you pulled us over? He says, well, I'll tell you something. He said, this area is very high for drug trafficking. He said, so when I see two black guys in a later model BMW with California plates, he said, yeah, I was suspicious. That's why I pulled you over. Since it's just you and I. Racial profiling, which is a part of systemic racism. There is so much going on right now, man. I'm going to have to do another episode of this maybe tomorrow because it's just crazy. What I want to encourage every one of you to do is to stay focused. Stay focused on right. I want to ask you, if you are Caucasian, to do as one of the pastors I heard say. Matter of fact, let me tell you this. If you know me, you know that I'm very proud of where I'm from. I'm from North Highlands, California. And North Highlands, California, from the late 60s to the mid 80s, I believe was the best place in America to grow up. And here's part of the reason why I say that. I had a white guy, Dave, call me, not call me, but text me last week. Dave texts me and he says, Mike, he says, you know, I respect your opinion and I want to get your view on something. He says, I want you to give me your opinion on Candace Owens. I don't know if you guys know who Candace Owens is. Candace Owens is somebody who was a left-wing Democrat and seemingly overnight became a right-wing Republican. So I said, I texted him back, I said, Dave, give me about an hour, man. I knew a little bit about Candace Owens, but as y'all know, I like to do a little research. So I did some research on Candace Owens. And I texted him back with my opinion. Basically, I told him I don't care for Candace. And I said, if I were you, I wouldn't trust her. Because how do you go from Democrat to Republican that quick if money's not involved? Candace is getting paid for being a right-wing Republican. Candace is getting paid for the stuff that she says about the Democratic Party and all of that. This is the same person who used to speak very ill of the Republican Party. Same person who spoke ill of Donald Trump even. Be careful. But the point that I was making is my friend texted me and asked me my opinion, and I gave it to him. And we talked about what's going on in the country too, with police killings, with the quest for justice and the ridding of systemic racism. What he said to me was, he says, Mike, I just wanted to get your opinion because what I'm doing right now is I'm educating myself, or maybe re-educating myself. I appreciate that. So that's what I want to encourage you to do if you are Caucasian. Matter of fact, even if you're black too, educate yourself. Find out what is real and what's not real. Because ignorance knows no bounds. Ignorance doesn't care if you're white, black, Asian, Latino, rich, poor. Ignorance doesn't care. And neither does racism nor COVID-19. Educate yourself so you can protect yourself. You do need to protect yourself from COVID-19, and you need to protect yourself from systemic racism. Educate yourself. I'm going to come back tomorrow because I do have some more that I want to share with you. And there's a lot of stuff still going on. So, man, I hope that you're having a wonderful day. I hope that God continues to bless you richly. You might not think you're blessed, but man, if you're still breathing, you're blessed. So until tomorrow, God bless you and yours. I'm out.